My life was always built around taking small steps that create big impact, which is petite practice. And petite means in French, it means small. And practice means that it doesn't need to be perfection. And I always was that person. I like to take small steps and I like to try things. I don't know what the outcome is, but I'm just going to see how it works and how it feels.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. I appreciate you popping in to enjoy the fantastic guest I have on today. But before we dive into our conversation, I wanted to share something personal. Over the past few years, uncovering my purpose and breaking old patterns transformed my life. Writing my own book forced me to face my fears, celebrate progress, and discover clarity I never knew I had. Today's guest resonates deeply because she walked that journey too. This conversation is about transformation from lived experience, not just theory. Today's guest is Dr. Christiane Schroeter, TEDx speaker, business and wellness coach, professor, and three-time best-selling author with a PhD in health economics. She teaches marketing, innovation, and entrepreneurship at a top-ranked U.S. university. As host of the Happy Healthy Hustle podcast, ranked in the top 1% globally, she delivers no fluff, high energy strategies that fuse productivity, business growth, and well being. Her Amazon #1 new release in adult education, How to Master Your Goals, laid the foundation for Petite Practice framework, now expanded in Discover Your Superpower and the Petite Practice Planner. Get ready to design your roadmap to joy, clarity, and next level performance. Good day, Christiane. Thanks so much for coming on Give a Heck. I appreciate your time and your investment of your knowledge with my listeners and viewers.
I'm so happy to be here and I can't wait to share some of that knowledge.
That's fantastic. So, one of the things I mentioned before we hit record is I like focusing on a person's origin story. It can be a third of the podcast or half of it, especially when it's very detailed in the sense that we're vulnerable and share with people what transfigured within our youth into our adulthood that really impacted us. Maybe we didn't realize it till we were older, and that's fine. That is life. So, Christiane, let's rewind to the very beginning. What are some of the earliest memories growing up in Germany, moments that shaped how you thought about ambition, health, and creativity?
Love that question. So, yeah, you can hear it from my accent. And of course, you know that I grew up in Germany just based on my background bio. But I think what really drove me that I'm kind of a problem solver. And so I'm trying to look for certain ways to help others in how I solve problems that I'm struggling with myself. And I think looking now, what I do is I teach innovation entrepreneurship. I help other businesses. That's really what always shaped my life. That I thought about, I'm struggling with something. And I'm probably not the only one that struggles with that. So once I figure out a way to solve this, I'm going to share that. And there might just be this other person out there that experiences the same issue, and I might just help them too. And I think that has always been who I was and is who I am today, that I'm very much a catalyst for change in figuring out what helped me myself and sharing that in a vulnerable way, and also sharing what maybe didn't help myself.
So that's a great answer. But what was it actually like growing up in Germany? Like, was there things that you experienced as a child that you look back on now that are specific to a memory that really has helped you move forward? Because we all, I agree with you. We help people out via the fact that we've gone through that journey. We're maybe farther ahead in the journey and we've figured out the school of hard knocks part of it. So it makes us a great person to relate and empathize with others to help them. But what was your childhood like?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of like again who I am today and what I do, I think the reason why I live in California now is probably experiencing in Germany one thing that I personally don't care very much about. There was a lot of, cold weather, maybe it was a little
Hmm.
bit gray, and
Makes
I think that that's how you need to look at life. I also taught in Arkansas, we will
mm,
come to that journey as well. But frequently in Arkansas, I told my students, if you don't like this area here, you can leave. You have the ability in your life to set your own path. So when I was in Germany, I always thought of the world as like a little appetizer plate. And I try a little bit this and I try a little bit that. And not everything might be an appetizer that I want to eat the whole meal of. But I always thought, you know what? I've lived in Germany and there are certain things I really love here, but maybe there's something else out there that I might even enjoy more. And that's, what happened for me. I was like, I don't really care for the cold. I don't care for the rain. I don't care for the gray weather. So growing up, I basically in my mind determined that I wanted to learn other languages with the goal of going to those countries and actually speaking them there.
wow, that's awesome. It's like you talk about, you know, the things that we have to choose, and you've told students like, listen, you can go wherever. I call that and coach on the buffet mentality about everything in life. You approach a buffet, a real buffet, you don't eat everything on the buffet because maybe you've been there before and you know what tastes good and what doesn't. Or you like something and then you go back for seconds and you leave the thing that you just tried that was disgusting. Well, I know people that have moved around the world until they found their happy place, their place where they felt comfortable. And you going from Germany, like you said, the cold and the gray to California, which can have it's moments, right? But at the end of the day, completely polar opposite in regards to weather. So that's good, though. For those listening and watching, buffet mentality is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just you got to be open to being honest with yourself. And you were at a very young age, which is fantastic, right? I used to think I'd leave Canada where I am because we go through the four seasons. But as I get older and I watch my grandkids play, and I can't imagine leaving to go to another place, even though I would like to, based on the weather, right? So even my buffet has different dishes that come into life, right, from our children to grandkids. So I appreciate that answer. That's fantastic. So how did any of your childhood experiences guide you toward your PhD in health economics? Did it drive you to go that route?
Yeah, because I think if you think about your own health, a lot of it comes from the environment where you are. Because of course your environment also determines how you can move your body, right? Can you go outside and go for walks, or is it too cold? Um, can you eat healthy food that is in grocery stores, or is it not available because it's just not grown there or it's not the right season for it? So health has always been a driving factor in determining what I personally do and how I take care of myself. And I think it also should be any business owners should be passionate about their own health, because the more you take care of yourself, the healthier your business will really be. Because at the end of the day, you are human and you are, the face of your business is really determined in how well you take care of yourself. So for me, it was always I take care of myself and I figure out certain things. I try this, I try that, and I'm very open-minded in terms of trying different methods in different ways. And that probably helps if you have that buffet mentality. It's like, no, well, that didn't work so well. But at the same time, I knew I wanted to study something with regard to economics because I also think that at the end of the day, trying certain things, traveling around the world also comes with a price tag, right? So you could say, oh, yeah, I want to live on this island over here. But we don't have the means to do this, right? So how can you live healthy while still sticking to your budget? So health economics really is exactly that. So I want to optimize my health subject to the money that I have and the income that I earn. And that is health economics in a nutshell. And so that's really like my life in Germany. Many Germans are very frugal, if you think about that. Yeah. And that's, one thing that if you look at them, people think, oh, like they're engineers and their efficiency. Yeah, that's probably it. But at the end of the day, you also have to think I can only be efficient if I'm really economical with the means that I have and I don't waste anything and really optimizing what the outcome is. So I want to optimize my quality with the means that I have. And that means it doesn't need to be perfect, but I'm basically making it the very best with what I have right now. And I think that's really how I always led my life.
That's fantastic. You talked about the fact of Germans being frugal. Well, my parents are first generation Canadians, so they're both sides of the family are from Europe. So I get that. I see that in my own father, but he was one of 18 kids too during the Depression, didn't help, right? And now in his 80s, he's still living like he was, like you have to search for potatoes to make
Mhm.
potato soup because there's nothing else, right? So he's still got
Wow.
that mentality even in his 80s. Very successful businessman, has money, could do whatever he wants, but that learned behavior from childhood from his parents obviously coming over and farming, became very successful farmers here and broke the land, pretty much never been broken before where their homestead is. So that same sort of idea, being frugal and living intentionally, was for them was a health issue, just having food on the table. It wasn't even about eating healthy. So today, you're right, we have such a more buffet mentality, or a buffet world where we can feed off of so many things. Try something out, try a new book, try a new podcast, try a new whatever, communication with a new person, write
Mhm.
something different, just comment on, be positive to somebody you don't know and say, hey, this is really interesting. Get to know people. You don't like it, leave it at the buffet. So I like that. So how does this eventually became and inspired you in the Petite Practice framework, did it not? So that you teach entrepreneurs today, how does that tie into it? What was the initial start of you doing this?
When I look back, my life was always built around taking small steps that create big impact, which is petite practice. And petite means in French, it means small, and practice means that it doesn't need to be perfection. And I always was that person. I like to take small steps and I like to try things. I don't know what the outcome is, but I'm just going to see how it works and how it feels. And so when we just talked about the fact that you think about the mentality of trying new skills at the beginning, you're not going to be amazing at it because you're just trying them. But with practice, you will get better. And the practice doesn't even have to involve a lot of time or a lot of effort. It just means that you're sticking to it consistently. And I think I was always that person that more prioritized taking small, consistent steps and really celebrating the little wins along the way than being hard on yourself because I maybe didn't spend all day doing it on one day of the week, but I more practiced 7 days during the week for 15 minutes. I was always that person that really appreciated the small things. And that's exactly when you just mentioned that earlier, that's exactly how my business is built now that I teach people. You're just overwhelmed because you're looking at this big thing. But why don't we break this down and just start with one small step and you will see it. The momentum will build that you eventually tackle the big goal. But we just have to get you started.
Yes, I do know. Actually, I like that. Thank you for that breakdown. We all take too much on. I remember this old story I was told to me probably in my 20s when I first started personal development. A speaker that I went over to and started talking to that was at a conference, he said to me, he says, people can have 15, 20, 80 things on a list, and they all try to do a little bit of everything, and they never succeed at anything. When if they really just started at the top of the list and had their priorities and worked through it as they accomplished and went on to the next. But so many people are like that around our planet. They take they sign up for a course, they sign up for another thing. They can't keep their family daily life and their work life balance anywhere close to being able to invest time, and they spend all this money, they get discouraged, they don't see results, they blame everybody else but themselves because they never ever learned that petite mindset, that one small baby step to success. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. So we're going to get into a little bit more about your books and stuff, but I want to talk to you about your podcast climb and high performance habits. Can you share the journey of how your Happy Healthy Hustle podcast climbed into the top 1% globally and the key lessons that you learned along the way of creating and starting and continuing on with your podcast?
Yeah, beautiful question. I think it coming back to the petite practice, the small steps leading to a big impact. I I thought, podcasting is kind of a neat way how I can reach more people and share a message and maybe share their lives. How can I serve more people around the globe? And at the same time, I told myself I'm going to not go out and buy a fancy microphone or some kind of fancy headset mixing tables, who knows what, maybe even hire somebody that does that for me. I'm just going to try it because guess what? I might not even like it, right? And I always leave that door open. And I always tell my clients too, I will always give you the hall pass that you tell me, you know what? It's not my thing. That's great. Good that you discovered that. So yeah, I one day took off my phone and recorded basically on, I think it was just a voice recording. And I thought, well, I probably need to start with 3 episodes. So the first one was just me. And then I thought, well, I think I need to have a guest. And so I looked around at my house and my husband was right there. And I was like, well, like, do you want to be a guest on my podcast? He was like, oh, you're starting a podcast. And I was like, yes, you're my big guest right now. So I interviewed my husband. And then the third one was about something that people kept on asking me about, and I had to repeat myself and explain it. So I had listened to my audience, what they were struggling with. I interviewed my husband because, he's my family right there, and it was convenient. And then the first episode was basically just kicking it off and explaining my intention behind it. And then I launched it, right? And at the beginning, I really thought the main thing for me is it needs to be consistent. Am I going to do this every day? Nope. Am I going to do this every week? That still sounds kind of stressful and overwhelming. Maybe every other week. Awesome. Twice per month, I can do this. And I'm going to keep it small, right? Petite. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes max. That's how it was. That's honestly how it started. And that's how it continues to this day. And it was my recipe for success because I never felt it was a burden. It was overwhelming. I basically started and I immediately gave myself the hall pass. If I don't like this and I feel it's becoming something that is not me, and I'm feeling like I'm like performing, then I'm just going to stop. And that's okay. But I'm not immediately saying, "Oh my gosh, let's aim for the 1% top podcast," because that was never ever my story. My story was always how can I help others with my message, that are not sitting right in front of me or not my current clients right now. People that can just tune in for free and get some fun wisdom from me all over the world.
That's awesome. Like my podcast itself, again, it was the same sort of idea. Do the intro, do a couple. I put a lot of thought process because of my analytical nature, because of my finance business. So before I started mine, I had done major intros, I had done outros, I had done takes, I had worked, found a publisher, production house, and was getting referred and recommended and pushed toward all of it by a person that gets 250,000 episodes downloaded every time she opens her mouth. And she had become a friend of mine. I was on her podcast. So I looked at it and I was scared of it. But I took that little petite step, that little baby step, and started doing it, right? And 256 episodes later, mine are longer than yours. I went and looked yours up. Some of yours, you got 7, 8 minute podcasts, whereas I have my average podcast is an hour, right? Mine isn't specific to, again, that want a podcast. It can be specific to your niche, or you can do like mine is completely about everybody. Very little bit about finance. I do have people on about finance and, having a better mindset in regards to your money monsters and stuff. But most of it's about just, amazing people like yourself, just sharing where you've been, how you went through maybe some valley despairs and up to the plateaus. And now you're teaching others to get past their own stuff. Like you mentioned earlier, we go through these journeys and then we become teachers of it if we so choose, right? And we can actually be good at articulating what we're trying to get across. So that is great. Do you ever think to yourself that your podcast will become something that is in collaboration with other people? Like you'll have a co-host, or are you just going to keep it status quo?
Oh, the sky's the limit, to be honest with you. I think that I have guests on my podcast. I did so I think the main thing is with the podcast is you have to figure out what your audience really wants, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you are serving them and you want to entertain them and you want to educate them and you want to make sure that they keep tuning in. And so it's not like, oh, let's talk about me. It's basically, all right, so who could help you with your current struggles? And I think having guests is amazing. My audience told me that we want to hear more from you because at the end of the day, they were like, no, it's like, we love the guest episodes. Let's maybe pull that back a little bit more. So then I had more solo episodes and then sprinkled in a guest every so often. And that seemed to be the magic sauce, really, that really propelled the podcast to the first 5%, 2.5%, and then top 1% to where I found that balance that works for me. But change is great too. I mean, maybe in the future will be different. Right now, I'm sticking to this system because it works and it's not really like an area that I want to mess around with. And I'm just happy with how it works and it brings me so much joy.
Oh, that's fantastic. So along the climb of your podcast, what expected lessons or was there any failures that turned into a great opportunity for yourself?
Yeah, so one thing was that I immediately noticed that there is so much more in a recording than just recording the audio, right? So my original recording on my phone, I was like, well, I guess I could have recorded it on video and then shared it on YouTube. Why didn't I? It's that efficiency I talked about earlier. Taking a small step and getting a big impact. When you already spent 15 minutes with an amazing individual, why not share that to a person that's on YouTube? Or why not share it on a blog post to somebody that likes to read about it? And so all of a sudden, this recording, the precious time that this person spent with me, reached more audiences than just as somebody that stumbled upon my podcast on Apple, right? And that's really how I started looking at it. Like, where is the opportunity really in getting your audience to tune in from different angles? It's nearly like you're driving on a highway and there's this cool little rest stop right there, instead of just saying, oh, there's some bathrooms right there. I'm also saying, or you could sit outside and just enjoy some fresh air, or you can go for a quick walk. And by the way, we also have this amazing little cafe right there. And it's still this rest stop, but I just started looking at a little bit more of like there's opportunity right there for you to stop and pause, and everybody takes something away from it. And it's not really creating more work for me. It's just making it more efficient.
Yeah, that's great to hear though that you talk about the fact of some people like to read. I talk to people about that all the time, and some people are visual learners, some are auditory, some are a combination of both. And if you really want to get a message out and help serve others, you have to try different avenues like
Mhm.
blog posts or articles that you write, post to the website, post to LinkedIn, post to wherever in order to get to the masses, especially with all these algorithms that we have to deal with. Even blog sites have algorithms, and we simply just have to, in some regards, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks until we figure out this is really working for me. Just like you did with your podcast, you found the niche and what you're willing to do and not willing to do, and slowly seeing your growth. So I like that response. Just get it out there, and don't think about it as work. Think about it as enjoyment for others, which should give you joy, right? So put in the effort.
Completely. And I also want to add something to it, like a little secret of some sort, right? Sometimes we are so hard on ourselves or we feel overwhelmed because we don't know what we should talk about. I can honestly tell you some of my most downloaded podcast episodes are the one where I talk about those little mundane things that just I do in my day-to-day life, because those are the moments that really create joy for somebody else that might have experienced those same moments in life. It doesn't always have to be, oh, 2 days ago I stood on TEDx stage and I shared my message with hundreds of others. It doesn't have to be that. It could even be like, well, let me tell you about when we eat dinner at home. We have this little habit of going around and sharing our favorite parts of the day, and we're calling it dinner downloads. And those moments are really what resonate with my audience, right? They're like, dinner downloads, that's kind of snappy. And so don't overthink what you actually need to share with an audience in terms of the content. Just share what you do and who you are. And that really makes you resonate because people want to connect more with you, and you have to actually let them into your world. And I think that is sometimes we are so hard on ourselves and feeling, well, nobody cares. No, they do care, right? And you just have to let them into your little world.
I agree. I like that. And one of the things that I've been thinking of myself, at one point in time, I used to do daily live videos. They'd be anywhere from as long as 10 minutes down to 3 minutes. And I've got 837 of them that I did in a row. Right. So I'm actually getting a lot of people that want me to go and start making those into small podcast episodes. So I'm going to look at doing a spin-off of my own show where it be like, 15 minutes with Dwight or whatever, 15
Mhm.
minutes or less, or 10 minutes or less to give a heck. All right. Who knows? But there's always so much we can try. But the key is to try,
Mhm.
right? To do something. So I appreciate that. So we're going to get into talking about your book, your books, actually, plural.
Mhm.
Writing isn't just about strategy or filling pages, it can be profoundly cathartic, offering clarity, emotional release, and unexpected insight as you translate through thoughts, pardon me, into your own words. Let's explore how putting pen to paper became a transformative act for you and how it can be for others. So, during the process of writing How to Master Your Goals, how did you experience writing as a cathartic practice?
For me, it was tremendously helpful because I finally felt, because I am a visual learner, that was able to put down what I always saw in my mind onto a piece of paper and help others in follow that same system and change something small in their world. I always think books are really like little change makers, your little corner of the world you're changing, and then they become the vehicle to change something much bigger in a person. It's just like a little candle, like a little light that you flick on, and then somebody can take that and carry that with them. And I think that's the magic, really, of something tangible as a book. So I very much use my book. I want that get people get the paper back of the book as a workbook that they can actually interact with it. So they're using a pencil and write notes in it. There's word searches in there. So I have some students in my classroom that are very much doodlers. And while they focus and listen, they're doodling, and I tell them just doodle in the book. Use a word search right there. And let's take a quick little break and all do the word search right now. And there's podcast episodes in there for the people that really like to listen. And then, of course, there are, worksheets in there. And I think that overall, I knew I wanted to create something that's really interactive, that really taps into who we are in the 21st century. We don't just do one thing, we do so many different things, but sometimes we don't know what that is. So, how can we master that? Is just trying out different things. And that's really what the book is. It gives you the opportunity to try them all out and then figure out, how do we master our goals? Oh, maybe I follow this path over here and I experience those like little episodes and events right there. And that's really how I set that up. So when I wrote it, I was really sharing my knowledge from teaching more than 10,000 students and putting that into a visual format, into a written format, and sharing that with my students.
So that's how, because it is a workbook.
Mhm.
So the core message is that you are able to help people. You created it based on your own, what you went through and transpired, and now you're utilizing it to help others to apply it in their own lives. What has been the overall response to the process of it? What have you found?
It's actually really beautiful that you asked this question, because the main thing is, for the students or for my clients or for people that purchase it on Amazon, is that just joy. To be honest with you, they just have fun with it because it's so uncommon from a marketing or entrepreneurship textbook to see a word search in there, or to see a fun little, like a flow chart that you can follow. That's a little bit like a BuzzFeed flow chart. That's a personality type quiz. It helps you discover a little bit more about your own superpowers. And just brings joy, because reading is joy, knowledge is joy, but you actually need to do something with it
Yeah,
and
you
not
have to
just,
apply.
you have to
Yeah,
actually
you have to apply
interact
something.
with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And because of that, because I knew that I didn't want to be people just like empty consumers of pages and then sit there and like, what did I just read? I didn't want to write that. I wanted to actually make them work with a material, like try it on, take a pencil and circle something, or write something in the margins, and let's create like some really fun little charts that help you and discover, how do we build a business from the ground up, right? How do we create an elevator pitch? I always knew that's really what I wanted. I wanted that people get messy, that it's alive, that it's evolving, and that people interact with the material.
So was that some of the self-discovery you had too, that things can just be messy, right?
Oh yeah,
as
for
as you
sure.
as you put it together yourself, right? The transformation, because I know when I did my book, I have little exercises at the end of the chapters and stuff that we utilized. The publisher and I, we talked about it, and as I went through it, it caused a transformation in me in the sense that I hadn't given myself a pat on the back. There was points in my life where I was successful, but what was I really? I missed little journeys along the way. I knew the starting line and the ending line, but the journey along the way, the transformation, I let slip by. And writing my book made it transformed me. It made me realize that there was things that I was weak in as well that I thought I was good in, because now I'm putting in that pen to paper, that the same sort of aspect of journaling, why people will journal, and for self-discovery, right? So I like how you put that. That makes me smile, because really at the end of the day, this us putting ourselves vulnerable on paper to what we've utilized because we didn't have that, to now give it to others and see the joy in their face, as I mentioned, like what's it like, is amazing. It's like an energy source that we can tap into just by thinking of that positive thought, or maybe somebody comments about how fantastic your book is and how it's elevated their lives, or they've reached out to you. I've had that myself with my book, and it was worth every single moment, every single tear I shed as I wrote my book, because I did some of mine was about history, origin, and the struggles. So I appreciate you sharing that, and the genuine feeling of the book comes across in your smile. Those listening to this, jump onto YouTube when you get a moment and take a look. It's just been so much fun, right? My energy level is just right above my head right now, because we are a lot alike in the way we think. We may use different terminology, have different aspects of our lives, but we have a lot of commonality, and I really appreciate that. So when you got into the becoming an author, did you have anybody specifically that you admired, that mentored or helped you through the process?
No, that's a great question. Well, I'm a firm believer that you kind of need to look a little bit as like there are these different people that I really appreciate and that I like, but at the same time, you can't look too much at them because you also have what I call unique value. And so I didn't want like necessarily to think, oh, I'm going to write a book just like that because you're not that person, right? So I knew that when I wanted to write a book, that I wanted to keep it really interactive, like a workbook. And I looked at some other workbooks, and I would encourage everybody that wants to become an author, go to some bookstores. They are still out there, those bookstores, right? And just sit down in the area of the bookstore where your book is going to be featured and just take a look and flip through some and then create a little pile and say, so I kind of like these, and then figure out, okay, so why do I like these, right? What is it that resonates with me? And then you need to put them away because those people are done. They already published their book. Okay, so that's done. And then you go home and then you need to figure out, all right, so what is it that I want to bring to the table that's different from what I saw? Because you're not going to write a book like these people. That's already done. You're going to write your own book. And sometimes when I work with my clients, they're like, well, there is already this thing out there. It's like, no, it's not, because you haven't written it yet. So I agree there is a marketing book out there and there's an entrepreneurship book out there and da 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 da. But it's not your voice and it's not the way that you expressed it and you explained it. And I'm sure that we are just missing that particular book on the shelf right there. So think about it like an art gallery. You walk through it and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful here. But it's just missing your particular masterpiece. And I think that's really what helped me, that I looked at different things early on. And then I knew, all right, so this is what I want to do. And then I didn't look at it anymore. And I think you have to do that because otherwise you get overwhelmed and you get intimidated because these other people are done and you're like in the messy middle and you just need to keep going. And so I just put my head down and just kept building. And I think that's really what helped me keep going, that I didn't compare myself constantly to others who were already on the other side of the journey. I basically just kept putting one small step, one petite practice in front of the other.
That's an awesome explanation. I agree. I looked at other people's books. I've been in personal development since the last 32 years. I've read so many books, and I thought this person did that, this person done that. And then I had friends at my publisher that I was looking at using said, well, look at this person, look at that person. And then once you decide, you're going to take all this buffet, you're going to take a little bit, maybe sample, and then just ignore it all and move forward. Start doing get things done. Here's the template. Here's our format. Here's what we're going to do. Here's why you need to do that. And then, like you said, you're in the messy stages. And then I had other people that started before me that I knew their books were coming out, and I felt a little bit overwhelmed until I just had to block out all the noise and just realize this isn't about them. It's about me. And I like how you put, though, I don't know if you really meant it this way, but when I think about people reading my book, it's no different than people reading a text, reading an email, reading a newspaper article, social media post. They read it based on what's going on between their 6 inches between their ears. So I was really cognizant and read quite a bit of my book out loud because I wanted to see how my brain, right, wanted to feel how my brain would actually interact with something without keeping it between my ears, right? And I had other people, there were certain sections of my book they posted on Amazon, for example, and other people have even messaged me. Their interpretation of a specific section of a paragraph or not me, a chapter was different than I thought it would be. But they interpreted it the way they needed it to be for their buffet to work. So I like how you put that, right? So many people don't realize everybody that's reading we may not have intended it to be interpreted that way, but they're going to do it based on who they are. And all we can do is hope to make it so self-explanatory, I guess, so that they can read it and enjoy it the way they need to enjoy it. I used to think they have to enjoy it this way. And now, 4 years later, no, I don't care. Enjoy it the way that makes you happy. Just getting I guess initially it was how I felt, but once you start getting messages and how people interpret, the number one goal for me is that it changes their life.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And I really also appreciate, frequently talk about when people ask me, why are you overwhelmed? I frequently say the biggest obstacle is just that area between your ears, right? You're overwhelmed because you're too hard on yourself. You just have to let that go, right? I think in my classroom, for instance, the reading out loud is the number one thing I really appreciate. So I really do go around and I'm like, all right, Sarah, you get started. First paragraph right there. And then we continue. Anthony, you continue. Da, 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 da. I really intentionally want that to be this way. And I mean, first of all, I put people on the spot and I basically just pick somebody to get started reading. But along the fact that you're using the words on the paper and you're formulating them, and then like I don't do too much. Like let's say we walk three people down, they read something, and then I say, all right, so in your own words, what does it mean? And then I get back, as you mentioned, something like quite different, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, that's what you took away from it. That's awesome. It's kind of like you you see how you would use that. That's great. It's like everybody has their own little unique spin on it. That's beautiful. I mean, I didn't even think about this, and that's beautiful that you took something away that I had no clue you would take away this way, and I love that. I think that that's really what you can do because it's not about you, it's about it's about the audience. And if they figure out a way for them how they can use your book as the key to unlock something special, you did it.
Oh yeah, like I've had people reach out I have a lot of American friends. I've been speaking and doing conferences and attending conferences for 30 years in the US. And I had a friend of mine, he moved, went through a divorce, started a business in a completely different state, and he publicly acknowledged me on social media. I didn't even have a clue. I knew he bought it. I've met him at conferences. I'd become friends with him, and he says, "You're the biggest reason, and these specific chapters, and this is what it created me to drive to want to be my own entrepreneur to the level that I'm at. And thank you." And I'm just like, wow. And then another person reached out to me and how the book influenced them a different way. And it's just, I get that warm, fuzzy feeling. I love it. It's not because I have I'm an ego person and I need that to fill my ego. I need it to fill my love tank, my appreciation and my love language tank, right? So when people love our books, no matter how they interpret it and how it helps them, for those listening and watching, I'm basically saying tell people you like their stuff if you really like it. Be genuine, be a person that realizes that, hey, that person put in all that effort. I enjoyed it. I put in the effort to enjoy it. Why can't I leave a little comment, a little, oh, this podcast is great that Christiana has. Oh, this book is fantastic that Dwight has. You know what I mean? Two little comments, 5 star, it can make the difference. It can give us enough fuel to continue to our perpetual motion. So I love my book for that. And all of a sudden, not expecting you get a comment or an email saying, I bought your book. Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for buying it. All right. And getting something out of it and sharing it with me. So that being said, I'll get off my soapbox. I like what you had to say.
Yeah, I actually also want to echo that in a way that we all love reading comments and feedback and reviews. And I think that the best thing, if you do like that, right, reading reviews and how people use the product and how it helped them and what they didn't like about it, is that you think, oh my gosh, it is so amazing that I like reading reviews. Maybe you should leave a review too, so you can help others do the same thing, right? That's how I always look at this. And then, of course, especially if you have something positive to say, don't only look at reviews as like your area to complain about something. You could also just praise it. And I love that you say it doesn't have to be long. It could just be one sentence, or it could just be, stating great, exclamation mark, could be one word. I think that we are sometimes feeling it needs to be this long, drawn out thing, and it really doesn't even have to be this way, but it would mean the world to somebody else that's maybe looking for a podcast, or the author that sees that. It's just a high five and letting us know this actually really resonated with somebody. And I think that we all should do a good job, especially if it's free, to give high fives and little words of encouragement and positivity. And it's so simple to do, but it's totally underappreciated how quickly you can make somebody's day with that.
Oh, exactly. Especially when I hear people scroll on social media for 2, 3 hours, but yet they say they don't have time to leave somebody a comment about anything. I'm just like, okay, whatever, to each their own. I'm looking for the tribe of people that will do it, right? And there's always a small percentage that will, and the rest, I just give it up, right? Think to myself, I hope I helped one more person today and what I
Mhm.
had to say in writing or verbally, whatever the case may be. So I love our way our conversation is going and has been going. I want to talk to you a little bit about entrepreneurial challenges, right? And you deal with entrepreneurs, obviously. What has been the most common challenges that the entrepreneurs that you have dealt with face?
Imposter syndrome, right? Thinking that they don't know enough and that they don't have the confidence to do what they do know. So, whether they are a real imposter and they're just pretending to know something, or that they are struggling with their confidence. They do know a lot, but they struggle with their confidence. So, those two axes, if you think about that, like high ability, low confidence, or low ability, high confidence, that's most of the time what I see. So the people that really make it are the high ability, high confidence people. And I think to get there is you have to reverse that axis. You have to think a little bit like to really become high ability, high confidence. I just need to start at the very beginning. I just need to be the humble student that has the low ability and the low confidence. And I just need to build that. And to build it, maybe I need to share with others what I want to learn. And that will build my confidence because I talk about it. And that also makes me maybe feel like I'm educating myself in formulating my words, but I also figure out who can help me build my knowledge, who can help me build my confidence. And that makes you like the humble student that eventually will become this very confident superstar. So I would say imposter syndrome by far number one.
That makes sense. I hear that a lot, right? I've felt it myself. Let's be real. Not even though that not that I was an imposter, but we let the little things creep in, the negativity, or you see a negative comment, or somebody didn't appreciate something you did, and instead of being kind about it, or and just ignoring it, or being inquisitive and asking a good question, they're keyboard warriors and destroy others, right? So at the end of the day, imposter syndrome can be a real thing, even when you've been doing something for 23 years, like I've been. There's moments where I'll have that fleeting thought. Hopefully it's fleeting, doesn't stay long. Or you think to myself, can I actually make a difference? Oh, let's see. I've been doing this 20 some years. I got thousands of people that have touched and influenced. Maybe I'm not an imposter, but
Mhm.
society can be really hard on us, right? It can be really hard on us, or a family member or outside influences that say those little demeaning comments, right? Oh, I have my stuff in order. I don't need your help, and you couldn't help me, or whatever the case may be, right? So at the end of the day, there's a reason that there's so many obstacles that keep entrepreneurs stuck, and a lot of it I find are extraordinary circumstances of family that's constantly barraged them, and they've been trying to escape from friends or coworkers if they're in a career as opposed to having their own business. They just don't know how to deflect, and I'm here to say, add more personal development into your journey. Like, honestly, learn to read 5, 10 pages a day. If you're not a reader, I used to be, I'm not anymore. I use Audible all the
Mhm.
time. Love it, right? Because now I get to hear it. I can still, wrap myself in words. If you're a person that struggles with both, use both. I have clients, I have friends that buy the book and they buy the Audible. Yeah, it's a little bit more costly, but it keeps them on track. Do what you need to do. Find your reason for wanting to grow and pick up a book, right? Just doesn't have to be either of our books, but I would highly recommend that would be good on your reading list. But you could add books like simple little books about confidence, how to win friends and influence people. Pick that book up, right? One of the all-time greats. There's so many good books. But again, check out Christiana's and my book, because we do have things that can help you out as an entrepreneur. Or again, if you're just stuck in life, it can help you elevate yourself to being the best in your career. Maybe you want to change your career. Maybe you just need to change the stinking thinking between your 6 inches between your ears. And it may sound harsh, but I had that stinking thinking, and personal development has been my savior. Why? Because it makes me think outside of my thought process and makes me challenge myself to make sure that I am not stuck in a rut of old information flow or old habits. Success is never created inside of our comfort zone, and reading a book is outside of your comfort zone if you don't do it right now. So, that being said, one of the last things I want to talk to you about is, do you have any real world examples of a client? You don't have to use names, obviously, that you could share
Mhm.
that has transformed their business or life by honoring the tiny steps, the petite steps that you talk about?
Mhm. For sure. Yeah, so had a client walked into my workshop, and I immediately could tell a person basically thought, who is she going to tell me what I really need? And that's one of my favorite things, being completely underappreciated, or that people basically don't think of me as like she has knowledge, she has a degree, she knows what she's talking about. It's actually quite lovely skill because you don't get kicked off from tables or stages or whatever because people just don't have a very high opinion of you. So it's lovely, right? So a person walks in, and then I started talking. In fact, that person actually was wearing sunglasses in a room. So that's, I feel like giving you the visual right now. Sunglasses in the room, and I'm teaching. And I could just tell as I was continuing to talk and I was explaining something, that the minds, the wheels in the brains started kind of spinning. And then eventually the sunglasses came off, and the person was sitting on the side of the room, actually changed even seats and moving a little bit closer to me. And all of a sudden I could just see it. Like it was like this aha moment. Yep.
Wow.
And I think that frequently we feel we just need to be like so cool. And who are you to tell me? And da da da. Just keep an open mind. You don't know where knowledge will happen. You don't know how knowledge will happen. It might be with somebody in a coffee shop. It might be with somebody in a workshop. There's always something you can learn, but you just have to be very humble about it and use every single opportunity of human interaction as a way to grow. And I think that's what happened right there. So that was a petite practice. All what I did was just I talked about tapping into a unique value proposition and I shared how we can do that. And I could just say, like, I could just see it. I was like, and that changed that person's life. So running a successful business now and really feeling that I think that was the pivotal moment where I felt like somebody that was exceptionally skeptical turned into a complete fan favorite.
Right
And I
on.
saw that visually happening in front of me, and it kind of brought a smile to my face, and it still does to that moment. But it's all right, and you have to be okay with that. Some people might not get that moment, and some people do. And I think that for you, if you create some momentum, you're basically if you share your message authentically and you can share how some people's lives changed, you're doing an amazing job.
No, that's awesome. I visualized all of that. And I've been in that person initially going into a room being, you put on a facade, you come in and you try to pretend like you're a big shot or,
Yep.
like that person was doing. And you just need to understand in order to learn, you got to stay humble. You have to be open-minded and realize that there's going to be things that make you really uncomfortable. Maybe you understand your body triggers and your body triggers are, freaking out. But unless we step outside of our comfort zone and drop our facade when we go to these conferences to learn, all you're doing is becoming something that I've seen time and time again, conference junkies. They come, they sit, they pretend, they live a facade, they leave, they put no action in, none whatsoever, and they stay stuck, right? So it's good though that your powerful conversation or speech that you were doing broke down his walls, right? Says a lot about you. Did you want to touch quickly before we wrap up the show about your TEDx talk that you just finished up?
Yeah, I talked about my petite practice and the step system that I use to really create small steps that lead to big impact. And
All
that's what I
right.
shared on the stage. And it was actually very beautiful because the audience completely interacted with me. There were some people laughing. I heard some people not, like shouting out, like, yeah, like little words of approval. And as I was practicing the talk, I even had some people in my audience as I was practicing that got some tears in their eyes because it reminded them about something very personal and vulnerable in their own journeys. And I think that that's really what it's about. You're getting on the stage and helping somebody discover something about themselves and solving a unique problem. So yeah, how small steps create impact is the title of my talk.
And when will that be available for people to watch?
Yeah, so I just presented a couple of days ago, and I think it might be, out in a few weeks. Definitely
Okay,
can't wait to share it, and you can share it with your audience. As with
right on.
anything, like it's going to be short. It's going to be, a 15-minute video, and I hope it's going to help you take something away from it, whatever that might be. And it might, I mean, there are some personal stories in there, some jokes in there. It might just bring a smile to your face. And I think that's really what my goal was, to make your life just a little simpler because we tend to overcomplicate things, but at the end of the day, it's just life. Yeah, you just need to enjoy the ride.
Right on. Congratulations on doing your TED Talk as well. I look forward to seeing it, and that's the reason why I asked. So when it does come out, fire me an email, let me know, because your episode will be a few weeks out yet before it gets released. And if I can, I will put that link in the show notes so that
Totally.
people can easily access it. So I've loved this conversation. So Christiane, if you could leave our listeners one piece of encouragement, something from your own life proving it's always worth giving a heck and never giving up, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say get out and do stuff, really. You need to leave your comfort zone and become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because when you do that, you will grow. And growth is not always, like beautiful. It tends to be messy. It tends to be maybe something that might even be an experience that you wouldn't really necessarily appreciate, but at the same time, that's really how you grow. And when you grow, you will learn. I think that's really the best message I want to give you. Like try certain things, but you have to get out and actually do it.
No, that's exactly it. That's a great closing message. What is the best way that people can reach you, Christiana?
Yeah, so we talked about my podcast called Happy Healthy Hustle. You can tune into that. And that's also a way for you to get that TEDx video. My last episode that I dropped on Friday actually interviewed one of the other speakers that was on the TEDx stage as well. So you can already get a little glimpse of some of the other amazing people that were there. And yeah, because I want to share their joy too and highlight their amazing talks as well. So check that out, that podcast. My website is drchristiana.com. And then, of course, all my books are on Amazon at Dr. Christiane Schroeter.
Fantastic. For those new to the Give a Heck podcast, go to giveaheck.com, go to podcast, click on it. You will see a picture of Christiana, as well as all the detailed show notes, as well as chapter summaries and a full unedited text of the show. Because some people, as Christiana mentioned earlier, like to read versus listening. So I give them access to both. And I appreciate anybody listening to the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it. Any last comments before I wrap up the show?
Well, I would really encourage you, and I love that you brought up Audible, right? Sometimes we feel, oh, I just don't have time to read, or I don't have money to buy books, and da 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 da. Most libraries will offer you audiobooks for free. So for me, sometimes we just have like these excuses, where in reality, we are in the 21st century. Things are much simpler. So I would strongly encourage you before you say you don't have time or you can't do this or you can't do that, try to explore a little bit more because it's frequently much easier than what you think. And I'm a huge fan of Audible as well. I read about a book per week, and I can honestly say it changed my life.
Yeah, it definitely has helped me too. Even the books I originally read back in the 90s,
Yep.
when they came out on Audible, it was so much different of an experience as opposed to actually reading it, because I may be reading it in my mindset, but when I'm listening to it, it's a different adventure, I
Mhm.
found, right? So thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you. So one last message, listeners, people watching, before we close, remember your happiness and goals aren't distant destinations, but choices you make every moment. Clarity comes from movement, no matter how small. Whether you write a sentence of your story, implement a micro habit, or speak your truth aloud, give a heck. Give it loudly. Momentum follows commitment. This has been Dr. Christiana, bringing authenticity, energy, and evidence based strategies from her own transformation. If this conversation sparks something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear. They're not broken, they're becoming. Their difference is their strength, and their purpose is waiting for them to show up. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe to the podcast. Hit subscribe on YouTube. Leave a review or rating in your favorite app. It helps the program get out more so that other people too can learn to give a heck. Every review shares a signal. If you didn't realize it, we've talked about this in this podcast. Platforms have algorithms that the message truly does matter. But if we don't learn to share, we don't learn to like and review, it will be stuck. And it doesn't need to be stuck. This message needs to get out there. And I appreciate everybody that listens and watches to the show every week. I look forward to seeing you next week. And remember, it's never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.